well, we'll just recess in place for a few minutes and give them a chance to get finished with that. Is Dennis coming back at some other point in time? Or have you narrowed his testimony or hers? His?
I will double check.
Okay.
I believe he's coming back after this, but I don't want to speak.
Okay, well, I mean, it certainly would be fine with the court if y'all have determined that he'll only take 1 day instead of 3 or 4. I just was wondering.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, we were. And,
All right.
I think Ms. Love has got a little bit of paperwork for me when she has a chance, some copies, but yeah.
Okay. All right, then let's get the jury back. Thank you. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Ms. Love.
Thank you, Judge. You may have a seat. Investigator Kilgore. Investigator Kilgore, I want to just clarify something that you touched on before we broke for lunch. When you said that once evidence is brought into the lab, and entered into the NIBIN system, a correlation is done. How many people did correlations back in 2015 on the evidence that was brought in that was from the crime scenes that we're talking about?
At the time, I was the only one doing the correlations.
Would you do me a favor and lean into a microphone, whichever the court tells you to?
Sorry, it's not on. Push the button. Sure. It's a red light on. Okay.
Yep, there we go. At the time, I was the only one doing the correlations.
All right. Were you the only one with that training to do the correlations?
No, there was one other person trained, but at the time, I was doing all of the correlations.
All right. And once you did a correlation, what was the purpose of the report that you spoke about earlier?
Just to show that the crime lab processed the evidence and did a report on it.
Was it then possible for a report to be generated by someone besides yourself on a correlation that you did?
Yes.
Okay.
The person that enters the evidence may not be the one correlating it. And again, at the time, I was the only one doing the correlations.
Okay.
So they may have entered the evidence, but then I would do the final correlation and look at the results.
And is the correlation, that particular act, is that particular expertise that which sets you apart from someone else in the lab?
Yes.
All right. So we were talking about the crime scene or the incident number 150080094.
Yes.
Right? And what evidence did the crime lab at the Atlanta Police Department put into NIBIN for that particular crime scene?
We received a sealed package with 6 9mm cartridge cases.
All right. And when you put those cartridge cases into NIBIN, were there any leads generated?
Yes, there were.
Okay. And what were the case numbers for the leads that were generated?
The 150080094 had a potential lead with 161031208.
Repeat the last number.
The 150080094, and then the other one was 161031208.
And if you would just slow it down enough when you're talking so that the court reporter can get all those numbers. Now, when you speak of a potential lead, is that because you have not sent it to the crime lab at the GBI or the ATF for that final firearms examiner to look at it under an even higher power?
Yes.
Microscope?
The NIBIN lead is just a preliminary lead until it's examined by a firearms examiner and confirmed, then it's preliminary.
Do the NIBIN leads allow Atlanta police to further their investigations into certain crimes?
Yes, it enables them to be able to look at the other crimes, but it's not enough for a warrant or anything like that.
All right. And let me ask you this. In the event, hypothetically, that you look at evidence, you do the correlation, that evidence matches a crime scene, and someone comes in and says, oh yeah, I did it, once confronted with the fact that there was a NIBIN hit. Generally, is it the practice of the Atlanta Police Department to go a step further if it's not a murder? In other words, do they send it to the crime lab if they have someone who is already admitting to it?
Yes, they will still send it to the crime lab.
Okay. And is that in every instance that they send the NIBIN hits to a crime lab?
Not every instance. Sometimes if there's no suspects or victims or anything that we know of, they may hold off on it until something else comes along. But every lead is not sent to the crime lab.
Are property damage leads generally sent to the crime lab?
Not generally, not unless they need to follow up with some sort of other crime.
And when I say property damage, What do you understand me to be meaning?
Something where somebody wasn't actually shot.
Okay. Do you have access to the incident reports at the time that you're doing your correlation?
Yes, but we don't generally look at those,
Why?
just to stay unbiased.
So
Not to involve ourselves with the crime itself.
So you're with the Atlanta Police Department, but you don't want to involve yourself with the crime itself, you said?
Correct.
Okay. Do you not list on your reports, when you notify the officers, any information about the crime scene itself?
No.
Like a victim or a suspect?
Well, if the victim or suspect, if we have that information, we'll include it on our crime lab report.
Okay.
But that's generally as far as we'll go with it.
And what is the purpose of that information?
Just have it in the report itself.
Okay. On the report generated for 15, and this is for incident number 150080094, and I will label it, Your Honor, and I will not tender it, but I will label it and provide Mr. Adams the copy he requested.
Okay.
I will label it 570 Yankee, Mr. Adams. On that report is the victim Stacy Adams that's listed.
Yes.
And when you spoke about the potential leads to case number 161031208, would you tell the jury what it is that matched from one crime scene to another, or that produced a potential lead from
Yes.
one crime scene to the other?
Yes, 161031208 was a CZ 9mm pistol, serial number B180139, 15 9mm cartridges and a magazine. And 150080094 was 6 9mm cartridge cases.
And again, you can't talk about what happened in incident 161031208 or the other one.
I'm not familiar with the particulars.
And Your Honor, just for the record, I'm going to call the next exhibit that I refer to 571 Yankee Alpha.
Okay.
Was there a report generated to make an investigative, to alert the officer regarding incident 161031208?
Yes, we printed out a NIBIN lead report, and that information is relayed to the officer to let them know that there was a potential match.
And was that forensic technician Stanton that sent the officer that information, or that generated that report?
Yes, Stanton entered the gun into the NIBIN database.
And that report we have labeled as 571 Yankee Alpha. Now, would you describe for the jury what the IBIS HD3D match point cartridge case image comparison sheet consists of?
Yes, one side of the sheet is the reference exhibit, which is the one that we put in. The other side of the sheet will be the test exhibit that the computer and the technician look at to say that there is a potential lead between the two.
And go ahead.
All the sheets are separated one side to the other, so that way you can look at them.
And if you would, don't publish anything to the jury until we tender it, okay?
Sorry.
Thank you. Does it also consist of a picture of what you are looking at when you are doing the correlation?
Yes, when we mark it as a potential lead, it captures that picture.
Okay.
So that anybody else that comes behind us can look at it and be able to see what we were looking at.
And labeling, Your Honor, the next exhibit that I'm going to refer to as 570 Yankee Bravo.
Can I go back and ask you a question, because Ms. Love, about you said 570 Yankee, and then you said 571 Yankee Alpha, and then 570 Yankee Bravo? Is that
I
right?
misspoke. It should have been 570 Yankee
Okay.
Alpha.
All right, I was wondering.
My apologies.
No problem.
Mr.
ahead.
Adams. Thank you, Judge. Thank you. And 570 Yankee Bravo being that match point exhibit information with the cartridge sheet, what number did you assign to that? The 444 number, what does that mean?
The 4-4 number is, as we were getting these leads, we created an Excel spreadsheet. So that's the number, that was our 444th lead that we generated. So that's where that number's coming from. So we can go back to that spreadsheet and look for that number and be able to find them.
And is that the lead generated for that year?
That's the total number.
Okay. All right. And do you have anything at all to do with locating or apprehending any suspects that are found as a result of these
I do not.
NIBIN hits? Okay. Moving to 15127 0278 and labeling the report regarding that incident number 571 Yankee. And for lead number 406 and for lead number 406.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Was there a suspect on this particular incident number for the Atlanta Police Department, 151270278, for the item that you entered into NIBIN?
Yes, we listed a suspect of a Quindarius Zachary.
And what piece of evidence did you enter into NIBIN for that particular incident number?
A Bushmaster .223 pistol, serial number D03525 and 31 .223 cartridge cases.
And was there a NIBIN hit or lead number of 406 for that report?
Yes.
And I'm labeling that 571 Yankee Alpha. What crime scenes did that piece of evidence produce a NIBIN hit to?
It produced a NIBIN lead to 15118-0462.
Did it produce a NIBIN hit or lead for any other crime scene?
Yes, we generated one other lead with that. So that one, the 15118-0462, the first lead, number 406 that we just talked about, was 223 cartridge cases. There were also 7.62 by 39 millimeter cartridge cases on that scene. And that one had a potential match with 15118-0588.
And momentarily, I'm going to ask you to put on the flipboard beside you this information to make it a little bit easier for the jury to understand and absorb, okay? For that last incident number that you listed, ending in 0588,
Yes.
did you have either a suspect or a victim listed for that one? And I'm turning your attention, let me ask you this, to the 151180462.
A suspect for that one?
A suspect or a victim for that one.
Yes, that one had a victim of a Denise Beal, B-E-I-L.
Do typos ever happen when this information is being entered?
Yes, sometimes the information's handwritten on the envelopes,
Okay.
so we have to do as best we can with it.
Your Honor, I am labeling the report for 151180462 as 572 Yankee. Is there also a lab case number associated with each of these reports?
Yes, there is. With 151180462, the lab case number is APD-2016-00216.
Okay. And what was the hit number for that particular incident?
405.
Your Honor, I'm labeling that sheet 572 Yankee Alpha. And turning your attention to 151180288 and the report associated with that incident number, which the state will label 573 Yankee. What is the lab case number for incident 151180288?
Lab case number is APD-2016-00215.
And what is the lead number or hit number for that? Which the state will label 573 Yankee Alpha.
So that one had two separate leads on it, numbers 407 and 408.
407 is labeled 573 Yankee Alpha, and 408 is labeled 573 Yankee Beta. What pieces of evidence was it that you put into NIBIN for that incident number, that APD incident number 151180288?
So we received 7 10mm cartridge cases, 9 45 ACP cartridge cases, 14 40 cartridge cases, and 23 223 cartridge cases. So we entered one cartridge case from each of those groups.
And which piece of evidence matched which particular incident number or gave a hit to which particular incident number?
So number 407 was linked with 40 cartridge cases, and 408 was potentially linked with 45 ACP cartridge cases.
And when you said 40 cartridge cases, did you mean the caliber? Or
40 caliber, yes.
Thank you.
APD-2015-02723.
And were there any potential leads for that particular report?
Yes, let's see.
Was that lead 355?
Yes, it was 355 and 356. There were two potential leads on that one.
Your Honor, we're labeling 355 as 574 Yankee Alpha and 356 as 574 Yankee Charlie. And in the middle, is there a report issued for incident number 150783205?
Yes. 150783205. Correct.
What is the APD lab case number for that report?
APD-2015-01208.
Your Honor, we're labeling that report 574 Yankee Beta. Would you please tell the jury what pieces of evidence were collected and matched or potentially matched to which incident number?
We received 645 ACP cartridge cases and 340 cartridge cases. So that 356 was with the 45 cartridge cases, 45 ACP cartridge cases.
Okay. Did you also look at or receive evidence from incident numbers where there was not a NIVEN hit or lead at the time that you did your correlation?
Yes.
For 152740150, which, Your Honor, we had previously labeled the report 585 Yankee Alpha, that should be 575 Yankee. What was the APD case number or lab case number for incident 152740150?
Lab case number was APD-2015-02795.
And who were the suspects listed on that report?
Diamante Kendricks and Martinez Arnold.
And what was the evidence that was put into NIVEN for that report?
We received a Smith & Wesson 40 pistol, serial number VJJ9110, and a Romarm 7.62 by 39 millimeter rifle, serial number AO-1820-82RO.
And what was the date of the report that was generated regarding this evidence?
The report date was 12/4 of 2015.
And since 12/4 of 2015, have you received no additional information about this particular firearms?
Not at this time. I have not received any potential leads or anything.
And again, does that include ATF or just Atlanta Police Department? You've not gotten any?
I haven't gotten anything from anyone.
And with respect to report 15118-1554, which we will label 576 Yankee, State's Exhibit 576 Yankee, is this one as well that did not produce any?
Correct.
And what was the case number, the lab case number?
APD-2015-01560.
And what was that report dated?
7/1 of 2015.
And the next three as well, I believe did not produce any hits, but you correct me if I'm wrong. We're talking about now what we will label State's Exhibit 577 Yankee for case number 15184-3239. What was the lab case number?
showing that in my stack.
I'll approach and show you the,
That was APD-2015-02043,
and what was the report date?
11/4/2015.
And who were the suspects that you had as to those or that piece of evidence?
Marcuvus Gray and Trontavius Stevens.
And what was the evidence?
A Taurus 9mm pistol, serial number TAW58741.
And State's Exhibit 578 Yankee, would you tell the jury with respect to incident 150060301 what the lab case number was for 578
I have
Yankee?
that one. It was APD-2015-01039.
Who were the suspects?
Alexis Greer and Diamante Kendricks.
And what was the evidence?
A Smith & Wesson 40 pistol, serial number DWE8593.
And finally, as to what we are labeling State's Exhibit 579 Yankee for incident 150680293, what was the APD lab case number?
APD-2015-01772.
Were there any hits for that particular piece of evidence?
There were not.
And what was the evidence?
It was a Sky Industries 9mm pistol, serial number 029828.
All right. As you described earlier, how multiple pieces of evidence could connect with multiple crime scenes, did I ask you before you came in here to diagram out what it was that you were telling to the jury?
Yes, you did.
And would you please diagram out on the flip chart in front of you what it is that you were explaining when you talked about various crime scene evidence matching multiple different crime scenes?
Yes.
You can have it.
Thank you.
Here, so. And if you would explain as you draw what it is that you're drawing.
I'm going to go by the complaint numbers and just describe the calibers.
That's fine. And Your Honor, after this will be all that I have.
Okay.
And if you could do it like you in school and make sure you don't put your back to the people you talk to.
Okay.
If it's easier for you to move that to some other place, you can do that too.
All right, so we're going to start off with just one complaint number. Voice up, okay.
Can't.
He's not going to be able to draw and hold a microphone.
Let's see if I can stand further this way.
It,
All right, so we're going to start off with 15254,
that is just,
0119, which was a 45 Ruger pistol. So from that one, we got potential leads. 15118-0588. And also 15078-3205.
And what were those lead numbers?
355 and 356.
Would you put them on there?
So from there, this case, 15118-0588, also had 7.62 by 39 cartridge cases. Those 7.62 by 39 cartridge cases link back to 15118-0462. So that is going to be
Is that lead 405?
405. One 0462 also had 223 cartridge cases. These were 7.62 by 39.
And so that our record is clear, when you said these were 762 by 39, which APD incident report number are you talking about?
15118-0462 and 15118-0588. So the 15118-0462 were the 223s. It had a potential link with 15127-0278, which was a 223 firearm. I'll have to excuse my writing. And there were two previous leads to those 223s that were not in this stack.
Okay.
So they were the ones that we had discussed. So those case numbers were 15027-2672 and 14273-1889. So that's all from that section for those particular cases.
Okay.
Now, the 16103-1208 was a CZ 9mm pistol that had a potential link with 15008-0094.
And what number was that? Was that lead 444?
444. And then the last section, you have 15118-0288. There were 40 cartridge cases. They had a potential match with 15019-2400. But 15118-0288 also had .45 ACP cartridge cases that had a potential lead with 15092-2269. And those were 407 and 408.
And I'm going to give you what has been labeled as State's Exhibit 580 Yankee and ask you if 580 Yankee accurately reflects what you just drew.
It does.
And Your Honor, as a demonstrative, I'm tendering 580 Yankee.
All right. That's admitted.
No objection as a demonstrative only.
Thank you, Judge. And for the, just as an example of the imagery that you look at, under the microscope,
I have no idea.
And is that your role to try and figure that out?
No.
Your Honor, at this time, if there is no objection, we would tender the exhibits that we referenced with this witness. But if there is, we can refrain from doing that.
Is your mic on, Ms. Love?
I took it off with the intent to give it to the witness. I apologize.
It's all right.
May I speak with Mr. Adams?
Sure.
Objection.
Okay.
I'm going to object as these reports as being cumulative of the witness's testimony, so they testified to the same matters that are contained.
Can I see, is it just like the one are they all essentially like the one I looked at before?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, is there a response?
Yes, Your Honor. A couple of things. You're getting the marked up ones that I'm letting Mr. Adams hold, but we're going to give and tender clean copies
Sure.
of those. And as it relates to the reports, in as much as they are reflective of the evidence that he was performing the correlations for, I don't believe that especially where there's the picture, I don't believe that that is cumulative. It is representative. It's an illustration of the evidence and what he was actually looking at on the screen.
Okay. So it seems like maybe, I don't know, these reports might be one thing, and then the things like the whole list of what gets looked at
Yes, Your Honor.
and the picture might be another.
I understand. So what we will do then is tender the IBIS track sheet that has the evidence of the exam
All right. So,
and not the reports.
okay.
So you've got 3 pages for each particular
I
item.
don't know. Do you? Some of them are in a little bit of a
Right.
challenging order, but
Three particular items.
Okay.
You've got the report, you've got the item, and
Right.
the photograph.
okay.
So I would not have any objection to the
Ibis in the photograph.
photograph. The IBIS, I would add to my objection that it contains hearsay, to the extent that it has findings and entries on there, I believe.
It has. I'm sorry. What?
Findings and entries, information on there that is from someone else as opposed to just Mr. Kilgore. So I object to the report, to the IBIS, but not to the photograph.
Any response, Ms. Love?
Yes, Your Honor. The correlation was done by Investigator Kilgore. The photograph is reflective of the evidence that is listed on the IBIS track report. And in as much as one sort of describes the other, we would ask that both be admitted and they are not hearsay.
Can I ask you a question, Investigator Kilgore? The things on the IBIS track that are like the firing pin outline and inner and outer outlines, is that something that a human being puts in, or is that something that the IBIS, whatever it, or the NIBIN and IBIS generate after evaluating on their own as supercomputers or whatever?
The firing pin outline and the breech face outline and all that, when the computer is taking the images, it has they have circles
And
that
then
go on there.
spitting out that information.
So when it takes the picture, it's measuring the diameter of the primer, the diameter of the firing pin impression. So that's the measurement that the computer does, so it's automatically generated.
I'm going to overrule the hearsay objection then. So not the reports, but the pictures in the IBIS, those documents are admitted over hearsay objection. All right, I'm going to hand all these back and y'all can sort out what actually goes in. Sure. All right, is there cross? All right.
And Your Honor, I'm giving these to.
Okay, and so the A's and the B's would be the things that are from my records, or why don't y'all just, even at the end of the day, you can tell me what it is. That'll be fine. That'll work better.
And Judge, as I passed the witness, I was demonstrating with the witness the photograph, what they're looking at, but I
Right.
can do that on redirect of course permission in Mr. Adams'
Okay, that's fine. However, doesn't matter.
That's fine.
All right, may I proceed?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Kilgore,
Yes, sir.
I've got just a couple questions for you, if that's okay.
Okay.
And you and I have had a chance to chat briefly about these reports that you have in court with you today. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I want you to help me, if you can, to just kind of break it down, because you've testified for a while, but I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that we can kind of simplify it this way. You are not a firearms examiner.
I am not.
Okay. So a person that actually looks at evidence and makes a determination, for example, of whether a particular cartridge was fired from a particular gun, is a firearms examiner. That's not you.
Correct.
Okay. In your capacity, and you work for APD,
Yes, sir.
right? You work with their lab.
Yes.
All right. What you do, if I heard you correctly, is that you receive items of evidence tied to particular cases, right?
Yes.
Those items of evidence come into you from whoever the case agent is, the case detective or police officer, right?
Yes.
So, for example, a detective, I'm just using this name, Thorpe, might submit cartridge cases to the lab for them to be recorded, analyzed, for you to examine their characteristics. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. You were asked on direct examination, okay, who's the suspect? What's the suspect name or the victim name or something like that? You remember those questions?
Yes.
That's not something that you do. You don't make a determination as to who a potential suspect is or who a potential victim is in a particular case that comes to you, right?
No, we only record what comes in the packaging or submission form. If it has that, we just record what's there.
Okay. So the submission form is, as you referenced, when you get those items of evidence, and hypothetically I'm talking about, let's say, some shell casings, right? You would have a submission form that has those items and it has some information, usually filled out, I presume, by the detective,
Yes.
that has the name of a potential suspect, the name of a potential victim, perhaps.
Correct.
All right. You would not know whether that's accurate or not. That's just the way the information comes in.
Correct.
A detective, for example, may label someone as a suspect. Later on, may turn out that person's not a suspect.
Correct.
All right, you have nothing to do with that.
Nothing.
All right. And you can't vouch for the accuracy of those recitations by the detective or the case agent or police officer.
Correct.
All right. You get the items. It may be a cartridge case. True?
Yes.
Maybe a gun.
Yes.
It may be a projectile, perhaps.
We
Or not?
sometimes get projectiles, but the NIBIN system is not set up to do projectiles.
Okay. In the case of, for example, a cartridge case, a shell casing, you would do a visual inspection, that may be the wrong word, analysis of it to determine what some characteristics that it may have.
Correct.
Right? All right. Once you've done that, you input those findings into the machine.
Yes.
Is that right? Is there a step in between that, or am I still on the right track?
No, once we determine which cartridge case, then we'll pick that cartridge case and it gets entered into the NIBIN machine.
Okay. So just to break that part down a little bit, you may have an evidence submission that comes in with 10 cartridge cases, right?
Correct.
You'll pick maybe one out of those 10.
Correct. Once we triage it.
Okay. Triage.
Triage is what I explained earlier. So if we get 10 cartridge cases and 5 of them are 9 millimeters and 5 of them are 40s, we'll separate those out first by caliber.
Right.
And then from there, we'll look at the firing pin impression. You know, if they're all circular, then we'll look to see if we see any similarities.
There you go.
And then pick one.
Okay.
But if there's no similarities or they're different shapes, then we'll again separate it out into another group.
Okay.
But that's just triaging to do a preliminary, I guess, a division of them.
Okay. They have similarities, then you pick one out of that group.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And again, that's not a final determination. That's just kind of preliminary determination.
Preliminary, correct. Once the firearms examiner looks at it, they'll make the final determination to say, yes, all of these came from the same firearm, or no, they didn't.
Right. But when it's there with you, that determination is not being made there.
I cannot do that, no.
Right. You put it into the machine, and that's what is it called? The IBIS 3D HD?
Yes.
Okay. You put it into that machine makes a determination, the machine does, that this particular item may be matched to another item in its system, in the NIBIN system.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Kind of like a fingerprint, perhaps.
Yes.
Right?
Similar to the APHIS system, yes.
Okay. Like the APHIS system, where you got a fingerprint, and the machine may say this fingerprint is a potential match to a fingerprint from some other case.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, that's not the end of it, though, because once that determination is made that there is a quote-unquote lead by the machine, then the items are sent to a firearms examiner to make a final determination.
Correct.
That is why you said earlier a couple of times that the computer determines that they may be a potential match.
Yes.
Right? Because potential meaning it may end up being a match, it may not have enough characteristics that an expert would say these two things match.
Right.
And when I say these two things, meaning you may have a shell casing in one case that ends up matching with a shell casing in a different case, right?
Correct.
Meaning that those two shell casings may have been fired perhaps from the same gun.
Correct.
All right. As Ms. Love asked you, the results, the potential or preliminary results that you get do not tell you who possessed a particular shell casing or firearm, right?
Correct.
Don't tell you how or when that shell casing, that bullet, or that gun was used, right? It doesn't tell you, even if there is a potential match, one case to another, that that item, let's say a gun, was used by the same individual in one item versus the other.
Correct.
Okay. All right, give me 1 second if you don't mind. May I have a second, Josh?
Sure.
I think that's all, Judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other defense questions? No, Your Honor. Any redirect?
Just briefly, I was wondering. So, Investigator Kilgore. I'm going to try and talk loudly enough so that I can be heard here. I'm going to show you what has been admitted as State's Exhibit 570 Yankee Bravo related to hit number 444. And ask you, once this has come on the screen, if you will describe for the jury what information it is that you are looking at to perform the correlation you talked about earlier. publishing 570 Yankee Bravo. As we look at 570 Yankee Bravo on the screen, would you describe for the jury what the information is that we are looking at? Just one second, I'm going to get it down where you can see it. And in front of you, let me do something and move this over. And I apologize for not asking the court's permission.
That's fine.
Would you describe for the jury the information that we're looking at, if you can, from what you're looking at?
Yes, so this column is the reference exhibit. Crime lab number, APD 2016-00748. This is the agency number, 16103-1208. This is your test exhibit. Again, APD 2016-00514. This is the agency reference number here. This is the person who entered the cartridge cases. This is your current date of the crime. The dates that we created the case in Niven. Person that created it. Modification date. And modified by the person that modified it.
And I'm going to scroll up and ask you what is on the bottom portion of that first page.
So the top part is the case information. The bottom part is the exhibit information. So we got this one is 1-T2. The T we did designate as a test fire. So that tells me that this was a firearm. The firing pin shape was circle. The manufacturer is Remington. The firearm was 1F. That's the item number that we listed it as. Over here is the case that it had a potential lead with. Exhibit 1-2. It's a 9mm made by Winchester. Circular firing pin. Category is just listed as evidence. Date of occurrence. Creation dates, the modification. So that's that information there.
And when you speak about modification, what does that relate to? What are you modifying?
When you enter it initially, you're automatically listed as the modifier because you saved it and submitted it to the data concentrator.
Now, scrolling up to the imagery, well, before we get to that part, what is the portion of the exhibit that we are looking at on the screen now?
So the second page you would have if you have a test fire, and it exhibits the firearm information.
Okay.
So again, it's 1F, it's a 9mm, it's made in Czechoslovakia, it's a CZ75, and then it lists the serial number. And again, the person that created it and entered it.
All right. And now going down to the last portion. I'm going to actually rotate this image and ask you to explain to the jury what it is that you're looking at when you're trying to or making a correlation. It's scrolling
Scroll
up.
just a little bit.
It is. It's slow, but it's coming.
Okay, if you can see, there's a line right here. So this is actually two different cartridge cases. So this is the reference exhibit on this side. This is the test exhibit on this side. You can see how these fine microscopic striations all look very similar. So when we see that, that tells us that there's enough similarities to warrant a further investigation by a firearms examiner to look at it closer under a microscope. So we would designate this as a lead. It's not a match. We can't definitively say it, but that's enough to tell them there's a potential lead between these two cases.
Is the image that you look at in the lab of a higher or lower resolution or the same as the one that we're looking at on the screen behind you?
It's a much higher resolution than this. We're actually looking at the actual photograph on the computer. This is just a copy of the printout.
Okay.
So the imagery is much better.
And are you able to see more, fewer, or the same amount of detail on the higher resolution photograph in the lab?
Objection, Your Honor. All of this is beyond the scope of the cross-examination appropriate for redirect.
Overruled. Oh, and you know, and the reason is, yes, you are technically correct, but she asked, could she do this? You know, because she was working on the exhibits, went ahead and passed the witness, but this was essentially still direct. So that's why I'm overruling. Not because it's not technically correct, just because we went a little bit out of order with it.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay. Thank you. So go ahead.
You may go ahead. What were you saying with respect to the level of detail that you were able to see on the lab? Is the level of detail that you're able to see in your laboratory higher, lower, or about the same as what we are looking at on the screen?
It can be higher because this is just the HD part of it and 3D, but they also have a way that you can add color to it. And you can manipulate these because it's a 3D image. You can move them in and out, and you can also enlarge it so you can see it better.
When you say manipulate, are you changing the evidence in any way when you look at it?
Not changing when I say manipulate because it's a 3D image. You can turn them to get the lighting right so that you can see it better.
Okay. And does that allow you to see striations and similarities even better or the same?
It depends on the cartridge case.
Okay.
Everyone's different.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Judge. Thank you all. That's all that I have.
Anybody have any follow-up from, okay. All right, then I think that we are finished with you, and you may be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And we're going to take a break right now. I know it's earlier than we normally do, but we're going to break now.
All right, for the jury.
I hate to tell you, but I'm doing all right. We are not going to start your testimony this afternoon after all. And hopefully first thing in the morning, we'll see you at 9. Do you want to just let the jury know that we're finished for the day? Laura, could you do that? Or, yeah, you can do that. Thank you. All right, so we are finished with trial testimony for the day. I don't know if you want, I mean, I know that I have the information about why. I don't know if it's okay to share with everybody the information about why. I'm kind of looking at you. Okay, all right. We are finished for the day with trial testimony. And I am going to go ahead and excuse Mr. Nichols, who is going to waive his presence for this next thing that we have are going to be discussing. But the next thing I want to discuss is something we're going to have to sort out anyway, which is, I don't know if y'all got copied on, but I got a letter through Ms. Persifield. Yeah, I think y'all, or maybe y'all on it. Yeah, the letter from Miss Merchant, from Natalie Merchant. Natalie Merchant. Oh, God. Ashley Merchant, and the defendants don't even know who that is because that was so long ago. But anyway, so she has some issues she needs to have, I guess, the state sort out, and we might as well just all sort it out here together. One of them is she's really not going to be available past, the 15th of November, and had apparently been told, and I guess we had, or the state had Mr. Arnold on the witness list for today, but she got told, I guess, by one of the investigators from the DA's office that it actually wasn't going to be today. It was going to be not for several weeks. And she just kind of, I think, is saying, could you actually give me a somewhat solid date on when he's going to be called? Are y'all able to do that? I mean, it doesn't have to be like, by the day, but,
Your Honor, so prior to getting this letter, we thought that it would be maybe that week of Thanksgiving. However, given the letter, and I think some of
okay,
her
it cannot be the week of Thanksgiving. She is not available, which means he is not available after the 15th of November.
So that's why we need to look.
Did you already know that?
No, I don't think we knew about what she put in this letter today. We had some dates, I believe, up until October, like these last few weeks, nothing past, nothing in November. I don't, and I haven't been the one primarily speaking with her, but my understanding is we knew dates up until the end of October, nothing until November until this
Okay,
letter.
well,
So
we
now
now
we
know
can,
that if y'all don't have him testify before November 15th, it's not really going to happen.
okay, so now that we know that, we can, if you can give us till tomorrow, I think we can decide when.
All right, and then with regard to, I don't know if y'all read it yet, but she's wanting to be fairly clear that if the state intends to ask him anything other than the wording on his guilty plea, there's going to need to be a immunity order.
Yes, Your Honor, she made us
Hang on,
aware.
hang on. Don't want to talk about this when the jury room door is open. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, she didn't make us aware of that, and so that is a part of our consideration
Okay,
if we
so
decide to ask anything
Let's
outside.
get that all, wrapped up well in advance, because it sounds like she's going to probably want to come in here, maybe with Mr. Arnold, maybe without, I don't know, but get sort of, I don't know, some kind of, you'll see if you can nail it down without the court's input and just present me with an order, but if not, then I don't want to wait until the last minute. And I would, she has asked for at least a week's notice,
Yes.
which I don't think is unreasonable.
Yes, and we plan on doing that, Your Honor.
All right. Well, and Mr. Nichols is still here, so you got to hear all of that too. So I guess we'll just end early today. Okay. Much to my chagrin. All right. See everybody at, why don't we all plan to get here at 8:45. All right.